And for the first time, there was a new school of thought that was chemically induced that made people question the very society they lived in. By 1960, the President of the United States was only 42 years old. Can you imagine? DMX is older than that. And he was going to usher in a new era of peace. He was going to avoid the Cold War. He was going to end segregation. And they blew his things out in front of everyone in Dallas. This country was never the same.
Right now, if you had them prepare themselves in whatever way they would have to prepare themselves to come to battle, and I bet what I have, everything I have, that meatloaf.
Are there any good white people in the world?
There may be, but it doesn't matter. And you know why? No matter how good an individual white person may be, they have an obligation to look out for the best interests of the white race.
I seen this dude screaming, crying, saying, "You fuckers did it right now. I don't want to hear nothing from you self-righteous libs, Democrats. We're coming for you." Knowing damn well the person that did it, y'all know what it is. Betty White.
We need to pause for a serious conversation. Some Charlie Kirk supporters are trying to shift the blame onto Black and brown communities simply because those communities aren't mourning a man who once claimed that Black people were better off before the civil rights movement, citing crime rates as his reasoning.
This shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad, it was evil, but what happened? Something changed. They committed less crimes.
The irony here is hard to miss. The same voices that once mocked Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, George Floyd, and so many other Black victims of violence are suddenly outraged at how people are responding to Charlie Kirk. Notice a pattern? Now, Black celebrities are stepping into the conversation. Some are taking the cautious route, but others aren't pulling any punches, openly declaring they feel no sympathy for Kirk. 50 Cent even posted something so bold it sparked backlash and was eventually deleted. The backlash has gotten so intense that some of Kirk's own supporters are now issuing threats against him. And yet, these same people stayed silent after the Colorado school shooting that unfolded just hours after Kirk was attacked. Amanda Seales was blunt. She said she feels no empathy for Kirk. Dr. Umar, on the other hand, urged Black communities not to celebrate his death, walking a more measured line. So what do these reactions really reveal? Are celebrities just chasing shock value, or are their words exposing the raw fractures at the heart of America's racial and political divide? Stick with me. I'll unpack exactly what was said, what was deleted, and why these responses are fueling such a charged conversation around Charlie Kirk's assassination.
Men, women, and children were killed in violent lynch mobs.
That's your explanation, but I guess
racial terror permeated American culture for hundreds of years.
Black America is worse than it has been.
That affected?
The first celebrity voice to jump in was 50 Cent, and true to form, he didn't offer a polished statement or condolences. Instead, he posted a screenshot of the moment Charlie Kirk was shot with the caption, "Want to know how I feel about this? I don't know, but I do know it's a good time to shut the fung up." That post set off a firestorm. Kirk's supporters flooded the comments, calling 50 cold, cruel, and even accusing him of celebrating a man's death. Some demanded he be canceled entirely, while others crossed the line into threats, writing things like, "Hope you're next." The heat must have gotten to him because within hours, 50 quietly deleted the post. But not everyone thought he was wrong. Plenty of people defended him, pointing out that Kirk made a career out of mocking Black suffering, spreading racist conspiracy theories, and belittling victims of police brutality. Their response was essentially, "Don't expect sympathy for someone who never showed us any." One fan summed it up, "I'm not feeling sympathy for a man who would call me every slur in the book." "Sorry, bookie." Another added, "All this outrage is performative." Meanwhile, silence for parents burying their kids after school shootings. Then came DL Hughley, who, as expected, didn't hold back. He reposted a TikTok that highlighted Kirk's own words, where Kirk argued that a few gun deaths were worth it if it meant protecting the Second Amendment. Yes, he actually said that. And DL made sure to remind
I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year, so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational.
But DL Hughley didn't stop there. Next, he shared a clip of Speaker of the House Mike Johnson asking Congress to pray for Charlie Kirk and his family. DL wasn't having it. He called out the hypocrisy directly. In his caption, he asked, "Has Mike Johnson ever done this for school shooting victims?" Did he offer the same prayers for Congresswoman Hortman and her husband Mark after they were killed? Then, when news broke that Donald Trump had ordered U.S. flags flown at half-mast in Kirk's honor, DL lit into that too. He reminded followers that Trump had flags raised back from half-mast for the Pope, but never lowered them for murdered children, or even for Congresswoman Hortman. DL summed it up bluntly. Is this tragic? Yes. Does it deserve that level of ceremony? You already know the answer. And he wasn't done pointing out contradictions. DL highlighted how Kirk and his circle constantly mocked empathy as weakness. Kirk himself said he couldn't stand the word empathy, and even called it a made-up concept. Yet now, those same voices are demanding the very compassion they've spent years dismissing.
Clinton in the 1990s, it was all about empathy and sympathy. I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that it does a lot of damage, but it...
I have watched any number of people of all kinds of stripes, people, theologians, politicians, people who consider themselves activists, all kinds of people on the conservative right talk about empathy, and they talked about empathy as if it was a pariah, empathy as if it was a moral failing, and they referred to empathy as a weakness. And it's interesting that they would call themselves Christian and be anti-empathy, because that is a core tenet of Christianity. So that is being a Christian without the empathy is like being a sushi chef without the fish. But empathy is apparently a weakness to a lot of people, and you never know. But I've always believed and hold this now, that empathy is quintessentially human. Human. It is the core of humanity. It certainly is the core of Christianity, if you call yourself Christ-like. But how is it that you can despise empathy, that you think it is a weakness, that you think that people are susceptible to it, like it's the cold or the flu, and that you despise empathy, but would like it when someone who you love is hurt or killed? We can either decide to be human and empathic, whether we relate to, like, or understand a person or not. But in America, nothing is more American. Nothing is more quintessentially who we are than violence against people we disagree with, and then having a lack of empathy when we don't relate to them, when we don't like them, when they don't look like us. I don't know how you can be a Christian nation and call yourself a Christian nation and extol the virtues of Christianity, but only be empathic when they look like you. That's not Christianity. That's not humanity. That's tribalism.
But D.L. Hughley still wasn't finished. He later dropped a compilation video titled Hate and Bigotry, Charlie Kirk's Real Legacy, and he doubled, down by posting another clip, this time of Kirk denying that George Floyd was killed by a police officer and openly admitting he wanted Derek Chauvin released. Then DL hinted at a bigger angle he believes is being ignored, the possibility that Kirk was taken out by the very same people he aligned himself with. He wrote, "Remember, when someone shot Trump, the first reaction was to blame the radical left. But in the end, it was someone from his own side." DL followed up with another caption. "When you point a finger at someone, 3 fingers are pointing back at you." To be clear, DL wasn't cheering on Kirk's death. He was dissecting the optics. His point was that America reacts to gun violence through a double standard, where race and politics shape whether empathy is given or withheld. Of course, Kirk's supporters were outraged, accusing DL of making excuses for the shooter. But plenty of others agreed with him, saying that right-wing voices were trying to manufacture a race war, while black communities were simply refusing to play along, and DL wasn't the only one catching heat. Amanda Seales also came under fire after making her stance clear. She wasn't about to muster empathy for Charlie Kirk. During a live Instagram chat, Amanda responded to comments pushing her to show empathy. She reminded them that Kirk himself rejected the very concept, calling empathy fake and weak. Her reasoning was blunt. "I can't empathize with someone whose entire existence I can't relate to, and who never extended that empathy to us in the first place.
I can't have empathy for someone like Charlie Kirk. First of all, Charlie Kirk don't believe in empathy. He said it's a bad thing. He said it's some new age made up shit. He also said people got to be sacrificed in order to protect guns. If he was saying that while fighting for reparations, I may have a little bit of empathy. But this white on white violence, he died? Damn, B. Life comes at you fast. I can't have empathy for someone like Charlie Kirk because I cannot be in his shoes. I have no frame of reference for that. I have no cognizance for that. There literally is nothing about his existence that I can relate to.
The online fallout has been brutal. After Amanda Seales made it clear she won't manufacture sympathy for Charlie Kirk, she was swarmed, not just by enraged white commentators calling for her to be stripped of status or deported, but also by black men piling on with vicious name-calling. The insults range from crude slurs to accusations that she's a sociopath. It's ugly, fast, and personal. Still, Amanda didn't stand alone. Plenty of people defended her, pointing to Kirk's record of racist rhetoric and arguing that she wasn't exulting in a death. She was refusing to perform faux grief for someone whose public life amplified harm. Defenders explained the difference plainly, saying, "I won't mourn him," isn't the same as celebrating his death. One commenter put it succinctly, Kirk himself rejected empathy and trafficked in hateful lies, so why should anyone be obliged to pretend otherwise now that he's gone? Another praised Amanda's candor, calling her too real and comparing media hostility to how Malcolm X was treated. Then there's Dr. Umar Johnson, and he took a different tack. Instead of echoing Amanda, Umar posted a pointed rebuke aimed at people celebrating the killing. He acknowledged Kirk as an anti-black bigot, but insisted rejoicing at another person's death crosses a line. Umar warned that political assassinations have historically targeted black leaders and urged his community to stop laughing and start preparing, even invoking the deep state as a source of renewed political violence. That stance didn't sit well with everyone. Some followers called Umar out for moralizing. Others accused him of hypocrisy, asking whether he'd be so measured if he himself were targeted. Plenty replied that nobody's celebrating, they're just refusing to mourn, and that Umar's call sounded like tone policing. One critic went further, angrily telling Umar to stop giving his energy away to vampires. The broader picture is grim. The event has become a Rorschach test for America's divisions. Celebrities, politicians, and everyday users are parsing actions, demanding empathy for some and none for others, and weaponizing outrage along predictable lines. Whether you see Amanda as callous or honest, Umar as principled or conciliatory, or 50 Cent and others as expressive or irresponsible, the same fact remains. The reaction itself is now part of the story. At a higher level, that's exactly what whoever planned the assassination wanted. The violence has fractured conversation, stoked tribalism, and turned grief into a performance metric. It's provoked threats, deleted posts, heated pushes for cancellation, defensive rallies, and conspiratorial speculation, and it's all widening the gap between people who otherwise share this country. So, where do we go from here? Are these reactions a momentary spectacle, or do they reveal something structurally rotten in how we argue about race, power, and violence? Can we still have a serious conversation about the larger forces at play, or have the divides become too entrenched to bridge? Drop your thoughts below. I'll read them and pick a few to unpack next time. Catch you in the next video,